For someone who doesn't love heights, the view from above is daunting. I'm the yellow speck at the top of this 200-foot vertical rock wall, shaking as I inch down, hoping these chains are secure, reminding myself I'm on a dream trip that almost didn't happen again. Heavy snowfall melted this spring, triggering flash floods that turned heavenly Havasupai Falls into a torrent of mud and forced emergency evacuations. Covering the worst flood here in recent memory back in 2008, it sent water flooding into the Supai Canyon and opened my eyes to the beauty of Havasupai Falls and began a 15-year quest for an elusive permit. But Instagram made Havasupai Falls world famous and demand for permits spiked. Beyoncé added to the hype, using the falls as a backdrop in a music video. And then came a 3-year COVID closure. Fast forward to this spring, I'm 2 hours northwest of Flagstaff, picking up my golden ticket, one of 100 permits the tribe sells daily, ready for a 10-mile hike through this canyon to the falls. Many fellow hikers heading in are on pre-pandemic permits from years ago, all of us breathing sighs of relief that we didn't get the dreaded email this spring, the email from the tribe, saying permits were accidentally double booked for the reopening. Hikers from all over the world were told your permit is no good, you'll have to reschedule again. By luck, I made the cut and hiked in with 40 pounds of gear and food. For an extra $400, a mule will carry your gear. Responding to claims by animal rights groups that the pack animals are mistreated, the tribe says there are now weight and size limits to the 4 bags each mule can carry. Mules have been part of tribal life for centuries, and these days, that includes Amazon deliveries to the 500 members of the Havasupai tribe living deep in the canyon. 8 miles in, you catch your first glimpse of Havasu Creek before it grows into this. Havasupai Falls, where the beautiful blue water is back.
It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's a pure, like, turquoise sky blue that I've never seen anywhere else in the world.
And it's blue. Where is this blueness coming from?
The tribe says it's from a high concentration of lime and other minerals.
It is amazingly blue. I'm awed, just in awe from it, yeah.
The unique natural beauty drawing people of all ages, including Celia Ricks of Mesa, making the trip in her 70s.
I've always been afraid. And finally I said, better now than never.
And Havasupai Falls is just one in a series of Havasupai waterfalls. The payoff for clinging to those chains down the rock wall? Getting to the base of Mooney Falls, the most majestic of the Havasupai waterfalls. Downstream, natural rock terraces create Beaver Falls, probably the best swimming hole at Havasupai. Along your hike, you'll notice there are still some problems in this paradise.
One of the biggest issues here at Havasupai is man-made. People tend to leave their junk around. Maybe some of the bottles accidentally dropped out of a bag, but other stuff, not so much.
There are like water bottles, wine bottles, and everything. This is a sacred place, or it should be respected. We're like visitors here.
The trash is often bundled and flown out, a major expense. The garbage issues and flooding repairs are 2 reasons hikers are paying a much higher premium for a permit these days.
You used to be able to come here for 20 or 30 bucks. Now a permit is closing in on $400. But for an experience like this, people here really don't seem to mind.
Accommodating all the trash and other stuff with us, yes, I understand the $300+. That's fine. I'll pay that. If it goes up to $500, sure, I'll come back in 3-4 years. I'll pay $500, $600, however much it takes.
That is, if he and I can get another permit. They'll be kept limited to prevent visitors from ever feeling crowded here, and more importantly, to help the Havasupai tribe preserve the pristine natural beauty of the land they've called home for the last 700 years.
here we are. I am just so stunned by the images, the stories, and Jared put together another piece that ran over the weekend because he does his Now Boarding segments.
It's
on
America's favorite travel segment. That's
Clearly.
the description.
Oh my gosh. And I was pretty surprised by this because you've been trying for 15 years to make this happen. How the heck did you pull it off? Did you get like a reporter pass or anything?
And
Okay.
believe me, I tried.
I know you did.
So Royal knows more than anyone
Okay.
because every year they release the permits for Havasupai
Yeah.
Falls in February. And
Okay.
every February I have gone through jumped through all the hoops. I've tried to do all of it. It used to be a call-in system for a reservation, then it switched into an online system. I failed at all of it, and then the pandemic set in.
Right.
So for 3 years, it's all been closed to everybody just for health reasons. Right now, the only way you can go this year, so everybody, as I said in the piece, everybody who's there now, these are permits from 3 years ago.
Which is
that they got in 2019, 2020. So all these people have been waiting to go there for 3 years. But a lot of people, as it turns out, canceled their plans, or they can no longer go, or they don't want to go anymore, or maybe they moved out of state and they don't want to go and they can't get here for their dates. So they're canceling permits, and the only way you can get a permit this year for 2023 through the fall is you have to log on to the official Havasupai Tourism website.
Oh my goodness.
Each morning at 8 o'clock, actually 7:59:58. And you've got
refresh,
to see,
refresh.
and you have to see who has canceled their permits for that particular day, and it might be a date for this week, it might be a date for October. You never know what you're going to get, so you have to log on each morning, and that's what actually my friend Matt, who got the tickets for us and went with me and shot all that stuff, he's the one who one morning logged on 7:59:59 and got those dates that worked for my schedule and for his schedule.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Are those the deal where it's like click the crosswalks, so they're making sure that they're weeding out any bots and stuff like that, making sure that it's humans and everybody has a fair shot at getting those passes?
And there's no third-party seller. Like, it has to be on their official website. That's the only way to transfer. Yeah.
That's good to know. I'm fascinated by all of this. Is there something that sticks out as like your favorite part of the trip? It's really hard, I'm sure, to narrow it down.
I think the hike in itself is really underrated. The hike in, they say it's 10 miles. It's really 11 plus.
Okay.
So I love to hike anyway. So the hike in is so beautiful. I think the hike in is really underrated, but then the whole time you're wondering, gosh, what's it really going to look like? Because you see those images on Instagram and you're like, it can't possibly be that blue. Those must be oversaturated or something. But
filters.
You walk down into the camp and Havasupai Falls, the big one, kind of reveals itself off to the right. And you're like, wow, it really is that blue. It's that gorgeous. This one, they look similar. There are two big waterfalls.
They're
so the one you're looking at there, that's
yeah.
Havasupai Falls.
Okay.
That's the one that's right at the entrance of the campground. And from there, this one's kind of nice because there's sort of a beachy area, and this one's accessible to anybody who gets there. There's no like hike to get down to it or anything. So that's the big one, and that's the one that Beyonce flew into for 5 hours years ago. Looked great. The rest of us look awful because we're just drenched in sweat, but she looked great. And that's the one she stood in front of for that video. That was part of the Lion King.
But you really couldn't go wrong because it is so picturesque. You don't need filters on Instagram to take these stunning photographs, and you talk about the water being so crystal, turquoise, and beautiful like that. Now talk about the hike to get to Mooney Falls, right? Is the big fall, the 200-footer?
Yeah, that's the big one. Mooney Falls is at the other end of the campground. So the campground is really long.
Yeah.
You never really feel like you're on top of anybody else there because it's more than half a mile in length between the two big waterfalls. So they kind of bookend the campground. So you walk through the whole campground, and at the end of it is Mooney Falls, the tall one. And that is the one that stops probably about half of the people because it involves like that rock climb that we showed. And you have to sort of scale the side of the cliffs there. And people have been doing this. I looked at the National Park Service, their museum website, and they have photos of these old, they look like bamboo ladders back in the day that went down the entire sheer cliff there that people used to climb up and down when people were mining in this area and looking for different minerals in the ground. And that's actually how it got its name, because there was a miner with the last name of Mooney who fell to his death while trying to climb up the side of the rocks with an injured miner on his back.
Oh my gosh.
So in like the late 1880s, they named Mooney Falls after that miner who died there. Yeah.
So in the 1800s is when they put in those chains
No,
for the
no,
miners?
the chains
or?
are relatively new. In the
wow.
1800s is when they realized they had to do something. So I think in the mid 1880s they blasted a bunch of holes and tunnels through the rock,
Okay.
and those tunnels will get you almost halfway down. So that's a big help. The tunnels.
Wow.
After the tunnels, that's where it gets kind of hairy when you have to use the chains, which are anchored in there, and then from the chains you go down to like a set of wooden ladders. So some people love it. Like one guy I interviewed, like that was the highlight of his trip, his favorite thing.
Sure.
Me, I was having a panic attack inside the tunnel because it's a slow go, because there are people ahead of you. It's single file. And me standing inside the tunnel, watching these people freak out ahead of me, I'm like, this is no good. Like I was wearing gloves, I was sweating through the gloves. Like I
Carrying
just don't,
40 pounds at the
at
time?
that point, no, it was a smaller backpack.
Okay, you kind of took
yeah.
off your
But
big
I don't
gear.
love heights, but I knew if I wanted to get to the other sites downstream, I had to climb down that rock wall to do it. So
Well,
we did it.
you had to cut out quite a bit of content from the story that we just shared with you right now, but there's a whole other piece that we're going to put on the website that you can check out that aired on Saturday, and it was pretty cool because I don't know if this is the guy you were talking about who loved it, but he's like, one wrong move and that's your death, and I'm like, okay, buddy, but I mean,
Yeah.
he seemed like he was having the time of his
He
life.
was more of a daredevil than me. But
Apparently.
he is an example of the fact that anyone can do this. He was with his family members. There were two of them in their 70s, and they made the hike in.
Which is remarkable.
So as long as you train and you're in, some sort of decent shape, you can do this.
It can be dangerous. They do have accidents out there
They
every
do.
year, or
I don't know if it's every year because they don't document it, say the way that
Okay.
the Phoenix Fire Department documents
Yeah.
accidents at Camelback Mountain or something like that. But in the past, a number of people have died at Mooney Falls falling. Sometimes people will get taken by the undertow and they'll drown in the waterfall there. It happened to a Boy Scout several years ago. It happened to another man from Utah a couple years ago. So there are signs there that the tribe posts saying, descend at your own risk and then swim at your own risk, because a rescue from there in the middle of
Would
nowhere
be-
is impossible. They do have the helicopter flying in and out. They fly supplies in, they fly tourists in, and that helicopter, if need be, is used in a rescue. But they also have signs up saying, if you have to be rescued, you're going to foot the bill for this rescue.
Oh my goodness. And you mentioned that it was just March when the flash floods came through.
Yeah.
So they had to evacuate the campsite there.
Yeah.
And you saw some evidence of the debris and all the mud that came up where it shouldn't be, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was so excited to get this back up,
Yeah.
open in February. And then, of course, the amount of snowfall we had this year, you could kind of see that this was going to be a possibility. And then in March, the torrent came through there. We showed some of that video. Just a huge amount of muddy water. And you never know how long it's going to take for that creek to clear from brown to clearish
That
blue.
crystal,
And Royal and I were talking about like how long is this going to take, and you just don't know. So from that flood, it took more than a week for it to clear up. And it did cause quite a bit of damage. The ladder we just showed there and that went through the middle of the creek, a lot of the ladders got washed out, so the tribe had to replace all of them.
Right.
And there's still like piles of debris down there as well.
That's pretty wild. I love how you circled. That's me up there, and in some of these other shots, because you and Matt work together on a lot of your travel segments, and you'll go hike off in a distance, and then he'll get the different shots. But yeah, when you're looking at this muddy waterfall, I was surprised that 1 week that brown chocolate look can turn into that crystal blue again. That's pretty remarkable.
And this last one in 2008, our news chopper was over it 15 years ago, I guess. And I remember that happening because that is the one that was the worst flood there in recent memory. They've had worse floods over the century, but that's the worst one they've had there in recent memory. That triggered a lot of evacuations as well. But luckily, the tribe has been through this so many times, and they will go and immediately help all the people who are in the campground who need immediate help, because they have a warning system, a gauge, but I think it was 2 years ago, the gauge didn't work. So the flash flood kind of came out of nowhere, but this time they were able to get everybody out pretty safely.
Yeah, that was dangerous. Weighing it down to pound
I
because
think you saw us in here carrying our stuff into
and
weigh
he's
it
like,
on the
okay,
scale
I've got
before
it
we
down
went.
to
The goal was
40
to get it
pounds.
to 30, 35 pounds.
Didn't
We got it
happen.
down to 40 pounds each because of the camera equipment we had to carry. And the batteries are so heavy. The
Yes.
batteries, I blame the
Yeah,
batteries.
yeah.
But most people try to do 30, 35 pounds, yeah, to get it.
Okay, but you had access to fresh water, right?
Where it has a filter inside, so you could just dip it into the sip it. They have a spring there. There's no self-service, although there's a spot at the top of one of the waterfalls where you'll see people walking around with their phones like
Come
this.
on,
Because
put 'em away.
You can get like a bar or two, and I did it just to send a text back home to say I'm alive, made it
Oh,
in
geez.
2 days type thing. So you can get self-service in just that one spot. They have like composting bathrooms.
Okay.
And what else? That's about it. There's no food.
But there
there's
is a family, right,
It's a
down there?
family. Usually in
Okay.
the afternoons, they'll go and set up a fry bread stand, which I'm telling you, after a couple days of just eating those freeze-dried meals that you put boiling water in a bag and stir
I
it up.
asked him what he was bringing to eat, and astronaut food or
Basically.
meals ready to eat, like
But yeah,
military?
they make fry
or?
bread and Indian tacos, and thank God.
Okay, but one day you waited too long and didn't get that
Well, just like
delicious
you
meal
never
at the
know
end
if
of your
they're going
day.
to be there or not. It's not like a real restaurant, so they don't keep like normal hours. Just like you never know if the helicopter is going to be there or not. If you want a ride in or ride out, the helicopter only works on certain days, and
Mm-hmm.
you know locals who are looking to fly out, they take priority, and supply runs take priority.
Sure.
So nothing there is a real guarantee.
You have to be kind of prepared for everything, but
Yeah.
the tribe's been down there for 700 years, and you said photography in the village is off limits.
Yeah, they have between 500 or 600 people who actually live down there in the village of Supai, and yeah, they ask you not to take any photos, but in the village, they're building a big new medical center. They have
Oh,
a church
wow.
and a market and a little cafe and a school. They have about 70 kids in their K through 8 school, and just some homes and a lot of horses.
And a beautiful destination that everyone wants to get to. Okay, something else that you saw that we didn't get to see in this piece here is a taste of wildlife, up close and personal too.
I don't really like wildlife encounters. I don't like seeing snakes on the trail here. I live in fear in Montana of like seeing a bear. Like I don't
Okay.
like wildlife encounters.
Hate's a strong word, but
I strongly live in fear of a wildlife
Okay.
encounter. But this one was okay. They have these desert bighorn sheep that live up on the cliffs of the rock in the canyon. And I'd heard about them, but you never know what you're going to see or whatever. And 2 days in a row, we saw them because at night, after the sun dips below the canyon wall, the sheep somehow come down off the rock ledges and they just like eat alongside the trail. And they just like watch you as you walk by, and you sort of like watch them to see if you're allowed to walk by. And it was a really cool, like, it was like, for me to there away from this herd of sheep.
I'd feel a little nervous because
Well, they're huge horns, and you don't know, like, am I in
are
their
they going to
space
attack
or,
or
what?
anything? But yeah,
They seemed used to it.
Yeah, and I've always been fascinated because it is very steep terrain and they're very sure-footed. I mean, they're giant beasts for that. But I don't know. I have like such a list of things that I was so fascinated by because you talk about like 11 miles to this, 9 miles to that. But did you wear a Fitbit? Were you wearing a smart watch? And how many miles did you actually track?
We did about 53 miles of hiking over 3.5 days.
Okay. And your buddy lost how many pounds?
Matt lost a few pounds. He lost several toenails.
Ugh.
Yeah, the
How do you get
toenails-
around that?
Grin and bear it, and I don't know. I don't
my
know.
gosh.
Most of them didn't fall off until we were on the way home.
Oh, that's a little
So,
unexpected.
Yeah.
Okay, gotta.
But aside from that, some people do get injured down there.
Right.
So I mean, if that was our worst injury, we escaped pretty well.
I know, because these two travel a lot together. If you're not familiar, Jared, in addition to his now boarding segments on the weekends on Good Morning Arizona, you also have your travel blog, and you've taken us from everywhere from Spain to Iceland to national parks, but also like local quick
stuff, too.
road trips.
Yeah.
And we're an RV family, so we've appreciated, like, he's like, you're going to Page or Monument Valley, you got to check out this, this, and this. And so, but you and Matt have traveled together a lot, and you always come back with like kind of quirky, bizarre, behind the scenes things that have happened. You've lost drones before, you've lost cameras, equipment, and stuff like that. Any equipment losses on this amazing trip?
No, there were no equipment failures on this one. You're not allowed to fly a drone there, so that saved our drone,
Okay.
which is still in the repair shop from the last trip.
I bet.
No, and one thing is when you're there, like I don't do a whole lot of camping, and I didn't
Yeah.
really like the tent. So I was like, God, I wish I could just leave this tent here, but you cannot leave anything there.
but people did.
People do leave stuff there. You can ask the ranger station on the way out if they want, say, an unused hammock or like a little fuel
Oh,
supply.
that's nice.
That way they can sell it to a hiker who maybe lost theirs or forgot something
Sure.
that they brought in. So if you want to do that, you can, but you're really supposed to bring everything out, including stuff you don't like our tent, which I easily would have left behind.
You're like, forget about
after
that.
this trip. But yeah, the garbage is a big problem there because there are no roads at all, like
Yeah.
anywhere around. So they often have to end up flying all the garbage out. That's a big cost to get a helicopter to come in and swoop out these big bins of garbage. And that's one of the reasons why the cost has gone up recently because of that expense.
And that one guy said he would still pay if it's $600 or what, because it is a priceless opportunity to do something like this. And because of social media and Instagram, everybody wants to be there, so the demand is sky high.
They do really have to put tight limits on the number of permits. Because they do, you'll never feel crowded there or anything. Like we were at some of these waterfalls and nobody else was around, so they do a great job with that. But I mean, that guy that you're talking about, we were talking afterwards, and he said it's kind of like, think of how much money a day at Disney costs.
Right.
And several $100s. This is the same price for a totally different kind of experience. So if you're going to go pay for a day at Disney, this is, in my dream world, this is what I would rather pay for.
A better way to do it. And if you're not familiar, Jared, it really is an avid hiker. You're usually Paestawa peaking it. Do you come across rattlesnakes on that trip?
Every so often, not
Every
too
so
often.
Okay.
Yeah.
How cold was the water?
There's a myth out there that the water is 70 degrees year round. It's not true. In fact, I found a gauge that they measure it every day, and it fluctuates by 5 degrees day to day.
Oh,
so
wow.
right now during the spring, it'll be in the low to mid 60s in the afternoon. In the summertime, it might reach 75 in the afternoon. In the winter, it gets down to the 50s, which is warm
Right.
for up there because it does snow there. So sometimes in the winter, the whole creek will steam, which is a cool sight. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. The other thing that we didn't get to see with this story was the confluence. So you guys hiked up to some crazy peaks to get that vantage point of when Havasu Creek is feeding into the Colorado, because we saw that really dramatic when the waterfall became like a mud fall. And then you kind of see that when you had rafters that were coming in from Page and kind of camped out at the brown and the blue kind of
I had no idea
merging
this
together.
even existed, but I'll plug my travel blog here, jaredsdetours.com.
There you
There's
go.
a whole blog about the confluence and the photos we took there. I didn't know this existed because at a certain point when you're hiking on the Havasupai Reservation, you will see a sign that says, you're leaving the reservation, you're now in the Grand Canyon National Park. So that's where this is, the western edge of the Grand Canyon. And if you hike like about 6 miles beyond that point, you just follow the Blue Creek all the way to the Colorado River, which is like a chocolatey brown right now. It's raging.
It's crazy.
And it's really interesting to see like the waters of the two mixed together. There are fish there. There was a team from the National Park Service studying the fish. And
Can you fish?
I don't know if you can fish in the national park there or not, but they were there spawning.
Oh, okay.
So I think that they would probably prefer that you not fish
Yeah,
at that point.
okay.
But I don't really know. But anyway, the confluence was really cool. It was really interesting to see that those two waterways work. Apparently Havasu Creek is the second biggest tributary to the Colorado River in that area.
I love it. And I love that you always go off the beaten path. You don't just go to the one destination. So if you haven't already started following his blog, it's just jareddillingham.com. Easy to follow along.
jaredsdetours.com.
Jared's
We've
Detour-
upgraded.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
JaredDillingham.com has a lot of Myrtle content. So the
We
dog
love that
content
too.
is going to stay there.
Yeah, he does the dog
in addition to my
rescue.
work content. And the
Okay.
travel stuff moved over to Detours.
No, we appreciate that. Because it is like, you can just go to a destination, like we said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but to be able to see like what is off the beaten path and that you're going to lose toenails or you're going to have issues like that. And it's not an easy thing, but it is worth it for these breathtaking shots that I think I always am amazed. Again, we RV, but every time we go to a different destination, and he's pinpointed some for us, I'm like, this is Arizona, and I've lived here almost all
our
my life,
backyard.
and we haven't seen so many of these things.
There's a lot of
but
those places, like Chiricahua last year. You guys went there.
super cool. I
You know,
know.
we've got a ton of these places. This one is probably the most difficult to get to, just because of the permit system.
Do
but-
they block anyone from being like a repeat?
Nope.
Okay, so if
Nope.
you're that dedicated and you want to like keep getting on there, is there anything to do like if somebody gets on there and gets some tickets and then to keep them from them upselling or anything like that, transferring tickets?
I think there's something internal on their website that prevents any kind of transfer without them knowing about it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's smart because we want more people to be able to experience the beauty of Arizona this way. And if we can't do it now, or if it takes us 15 years, at least you can
It's
watch
worth it. It's
this
worth it.
story that Jared put
Yeah.
together. We're going to rerun it again at 6:30 and 9 tonight.
It'll live forever on the website, hopefully.
Yes, and the other story that ran over the weekend that has kind of the pictures with the big horns and the confluence and all that other stuff. So that's worth watching as well. And I love the lady who had the T-shirt because she didn't get to go for 3 years, and she marked off the 3 years that she missed out on this.
Yeah,
but
it's a family group from Glendale. They were hiking in as we were hiking out.
I cannot imagine getting that email though on the accident to say you're double booked because, like you said, people come from all over the world.
All over.
For this.
There was a family from London I was
Wow.
in touch with over Facebook, and they were like, "We have our flights booked, and we've been planning this." And then they got that email that so many people got this spring saying, "You're not canceled. You just can't come on these days. We got to push you out again." And the tribe hasn't been overly clear about which vendor or which company they were using, who they blame on double booking the reopening. But they say this third-party vendor accidentally double booked everything for this spring. They did tell me last week, it's over. So anyone who has a permit for the rest of the year, you're good to go. You should not have to reschedule from here on out.
I mean, because not all of us are as of great shape as Jared, where you're hiking, every day, and then you could just hit the trail and do 50 miles like that. That's probably also a physical thing that you've got to prime yourself for. But
I looked pretty rough.
no, you didn't.
I
You
didn't
did
look
great.
great doing it, but we had a wonderful time.
Yeah, and we enjoyed sharing that with you. Anything else that you want to add? I didn't ask.
No.
Okay, that was fun.
Should
Very
we go,
entertaining.
should we go to our normal shows?
I guess so. Yeah, let's get on with the news. We'll see you back here tonight. It's
Thanks for watching Arizona's Family. Watch us live wherever you are. Our mobile and streaming